Hey guys, Christina Ritchie. If you want more pars, let's make sure you're rotating into your back hip properly. I'm seeing a lot of variations, different kind of hip movements. Some are over-rotating, some don't have enough, and some are just right. Today we're going to find your Goldilocks. You ready? Let's get to it. All right, so I think a lot of players are still unclear about how to rotate their hips properly. And that really goes hand in hand with pressure. How to move your pressure from setup, which is 50-50, into the backswing, which is now 80% on my trail side. All right, I haven't moved my mass over to do that. All right, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of players move their mass over to get their pressure into their back hip. And then their back hip isn't in a position at the top to be efficient on the downswing. So if you're rotating into your backswing and you're really moving your mass over here and even pushing your pelvis in like this to get rotation, you're actually doing damage to your back. All right, instead we gotta move our pressure, yes, and then we gotta rotate our hips so we're creating extension with our trail leg. So you can see there's extension here versus standing right on top of it. I'm seeing players really just stand on top of their back leg, okay, and then over-rotate their pelvis to try to create that hip rotation, all right, and that's not the best way to do it. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a yellow shaft because it's easy to see and come in a little closer. All right, so if I place the shaft on my hips, all right, what you're gonna do is I'm gonna place a shaft in the ground right against my hip line. All right, and what you're gonna do is you're going to turn your hips and your torso is gonna go down, and so is the shaft. And you can see that I've created space with this trail side and the shaft. All right, and there's an extension with my leg as well. When you put it, angle it so it's really against you. Okay, now, as I take the club back, there's a slight move into the shaft. Just a very slight move because I'm putting pressure deep into the ground. And then from here, the hip works away from it. All right, so you're creating space with your trail leg and the shaft. All right, and there's an extension line. My hip is angled a little bit this way, okay? And that's gonna help you use the pressure in the ground correctly, all right? Because if we just get stacked and move our weight and rotate our pelvis, all right, we're not really leveraging the ground properly. All right, so just things to watch out for, things that I'm seeing in the hip rotation department. All right, watch your setup. I'm seeing a lot of players go really square with their feet. All right, and that's gonna prohibit you from turning into your hip. All right, so just watch that. All right, especially if you have bad knees, the last thing you wanna do is duck toe your feet, the very last thing. So go ahead and just flare them out a little. All right, it's gonna be a lot easier to really clear that hip away from that line so you can create a nice angle and pressure on the back leg. All right, because when I was taught to keep the knee flex. All right, but modern golf, no. All right, so when you get set up, stand tall. All right, versus setting up with a lot of knee flex. All right, we don't want to set up like this. Stand tall, hinge from your hips, and the very first move, put the pressure. All right, so your trail leg's gonna move a little, and then you're gonna move into your backswing. All right, so I'm actually gonna lose a little flex in this back leg when I get to the top. All right, it's soft at setup, and then I'm gonna lose a little at the top, okay? Versus having a lot of knee flex and keeping that knee flex, all right? That puts a lot of pressure on your knees, all right? And it's gonna limit your torso rotation as well. So if you have a lot of knee flex and you're turning and you're trying to keep that knee flex, you're gonna limit this and you're gonna limit this, okay? Instead, move your pressure and then allow this hip to go back towards the target and this leg's gonna straighten a little bit as a result. This knee here, I want you to be careful of this. As you turn, I don't want it going out towards the ball, okay? Because that's gonna limit your hip turn. Instead, allow it to move towards your back knee. It doesn't have to go crazy. Pressure, turn. So you can see the knees moving in towards the back versus pressure out towards the ball, all right? That changes your tilts and changes your pressure points, and it restricts your hips. All right, so those are just some of the things to watch out for. So the other thing I want you to watch out for is your pelvis, all right? I'm not asking you to move your pelvis way over here. I'm asking you to feel like you keep your pelvis where it is, moving your pressure a little bit, and then rotating, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just do a couple ways. So this is correct. All right, so the minute I take the club back, I'm putting pressure in, and then I'm sitting into this back hip, all right, creating space. All right, this would be incorrect. All right, you can see how far the pelvis traveled. All right, this is where I see players go off. They're trying to rotate their hips, make a bigger backswing, and they're moving their pelvis into another zip code. So you really feel like there's a line on your pelvis, and you're keeping you can keep your bottom on that line. All right, there's a wall behind you. That makes life easy. There's a wall behind you. Move your pressure. Your back cheek is touching the wall. Get deeper into that back cheek. All right, so you're breaking through the wall with that back cheek. Okay, and as you transition, the other cheek's gonna touch the wall, and then you come through. Just one other thing I want you to be mindful of when you're doing this. All right, so you're gonna stand tall, minimal knee flex. As you turn into your backswing, the minute you take this club back, pressure right out of the gate. So there's gonna be a little move onto your trail leg, and then you're gonna rotate around that stability, all right? That's where the magic is. The magic is actually the first move right out of the gate. Boom. All right, Rory does this amazingly. I'm gonna put that clip up right now, all right? Boom, there, and then he rotates around that. If you're one that lifts your lead heel, and I really like that, just be careful that you're not overdoing it, all right? Because maybe before you were restricted and you had too much knee flex, and now someone told you to lift your lead heel, and now you're overcooking it and over-rotating. All right, so your pelvis has traveled much too much, and you're not going to be able to get it into position in time. You're not going to have any time, okay? So if you do lift this lead heel, just lift it a little bit, a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, all right? That'll be enough. Just make sure this knee moves into the back one versus out, all right? That's where players really go off, all right? So we don't want our hips to crazy rotate. We just want them to rotate. So we have an angle here, all right? So let me know if that all makes sense. If you have any questions about this, leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer in future tips.